I am Todd Obert, President and CEO of Productive. Joined here alongside me is Pete Greco, our VP of Sales and Technology. He has his lei on and his sunglasses, and I believe is topless to do this presentation today. So pretty excited to hear about assured recovery from the beach. Are you on the beach right now, Mr. Greco?
Absolutely. Trying to keep my laptop dry so we can make it all the way through this thing, but we're going to have to play it by ear.
All right. Well, we'll put it in the baggie, and we'll see how it goes.
The best way to work.
It's the best way to work. The plastic on the keyboard is
Right.
fantastic.
Yeah.
So in any event, let's meet Productive in 1 minute. We'll talk about what's new actually in version 6.5, and then Mr. Greco will give us an arcserve UDP and assured recovery overview. So let's get rolling. Who is Productive Corp, you ask? Well, I am so glad you took the time to ask me, because I will tell you. Productive Corporation provides security solutions for mid-sized companies. We offer specialized expertise. We answer technical licensing questions, have many ways to help you, not only with understanding the technology, but getting it implemented and optimized. We also do stuff like security assessments. We can do vulnerability assessments, penetration tests to improve your security posture. We can help you get your products installed, configured, whether that's gateway or appliances. And we do a lot of technical services around that. We also produce a lot of third-party content like today's event to help you understand what's happening in the mid-market. All of this can be found at productivecorp.com/content, as well as our YouTube channel. The bottom line is we have the resources to help you, whether it's implementation, assessment, licensing, or optimization services. We're here to help. Help at productivecorp.com. And like I mentioned, one of the ways that we help is by putting on educational events around products that are relevant in the market. Today we're going to talk about arcserve assured recovery and what's new in version 6.5 and how the assured recovery really is assured, I guess would be a good way to say it. Pete will give you an overview with a couple of slides and get right into the demo, keeping it real, keeping it relevant. Let's have a warm virtual round of applause for Mr. Pete Greco. Pete?
Oh, Todd, I couldn't hear you over all the applause.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody, for hopping on with us today. We are going to get this show further down the road right now. I only have a couple of slides, and then we are going to be diving right into some technology. So, Todd, you're looking at my screen, correct?
You are looking good, Mr. Next Gen UDP.
Excellent. That's what I do. So we have been involved with the arcserve product line for quite a while, not quite 20 years, but I think going back to kind of 2002, 2003. So we've seen a lot of stuff happen with the arcserve family of products, originating from the traditional backup where folks were putting an agent on each machine and basically driving those machines in a priority order straight to tape, right? And doing the overnight incremental throughout the week, the full on Friday night or over the weekend, and then back to incrementals and kind of rinse and repeat. And a few years ago, right, maybe more than a couple years at this point, arcserve modified to the unified data protection, which really combined their original D2D product and their traditional backup product into one interface that gives you the capability to do the more frequent backups throughout the day. For us in our environment, this completely flip-flopped the way that we control our recovery program. So instead of doing backups overnights and on the weekends now, we pretty much only do backups during the day. And so now we're reducing our recovery time objective, the ability for us to spin up quickly and be recovered quickly, and I'll show you some of the stuff I'm talking about there, as well as reducing our recovery point objective. So if we do need to recover, we're going back to some relatively fresh data. Kind of depends a little bit on the server and what plan it's in, but on some of those, the max age would be 1 hour or less old. So pretty fresh data to be able to recover, and you can actually reduce those down quite a little bit. The demo that I'm going to be showing today is off of an arcserve appliance. This can also be a software-only deployment, and when you do that, when you do the software-only deployment or have the appliance, either way, can't tell the difference from the console. So the console that you're looking at, there's no way to tell if I'm running an appliance other than looking at my license key. There's no way to tell if I have an appliance or a full standalone install. If I'm going to do my own install, I can put it into virtual environment if I want. Obviously, you can install it on a physical machine. A lot of different ways to do that. And then once we're getting our backups rolling, we can replicate recovery point server to recovery point server to spread that data around. We can move it up to the cloud. You can still drive to tape. We surprisingly talked to a lot of folks with a pretty significant tape investment that they want to continue to leverage, and you can take advantage of that as well. So a lot of capabilities there. We talked a little bit, right, about that this product is relatively new, within the last 3 years. And as I mentioned, really have done a nice job of bringing all of the individual components that arcserve previously had into this one unified console, and it's going to give you the capabilities to still do physical backups. We have a lot of clients that are running physical servers for various reasons. Agentless virtual environment backups, and a couple different ways you can do those. When you're doing your licensing, you no longer have to worry about agents, which is one of the things that I feel like really simplifies the use of this. So you can license it based on an appliance size, based on capacity, or based on the number of sockets. And once you're running the product, if you determine you need to put an agent into a machine, into a guest where you weren't planning on having an agent, you don't need to come back and buy anything. And you definitely no longer need to know, is it an agent to help with granular exchange recovery or granular SQL recovery or what? The agents cover everything. That also just makes it a lot easier to manage. And again, as I mentioned previously, if you want to drive to the cloud and tape or cloud, whichever, you have all of those capabilities as well. What we've helped quite a few customers do, though, is go appliance to appliance at 2 different locations. And so they have a couple of setups at each location. They're backing up locally, and then maybe overnight or periodically throughout the day, they're replicating deduped data internally from appliance to appliance so that they have local backups at each location, but they also have the backups from their alternate location there as well. So they've gotten data off-site. They're still keeping control over it, and a lot of folks are really digging that. But tons of ways to set this up. As we get into the console, you'll see relatively straightforward. We do have a pro service offering that we wrap around the UDP to help folks do a quick start, get that RPS server set up, get that appliance joined to their network, and get the first couple of backup jobs rolling, and really do some nice knowledge transfer. And that's not a 2-week thing or anything like that. It's a lot of folks are doing kind of a 2 to 8 hour type situation depending on their environment, and really getting some benefit out of that. And so that's something that we can help you out with as well. And really scalable. We're running this on 6 or 8 servers here. A lot of folks taking care of 50, 100, 150, 250 servers in their environment, and using this product in a couple of different ways. And I'll try and kind of showcase those for you a little bit with the limited amount of time that we have. I think number one thing to keep in mind, we're going to look at this at kind of a high level, but would love to come back and do a custom demo for anybody on the call who really wants to get an understanding of how does this apply to my specific environment or your unique challenges that you're trying to address. So as your productive account rep follows up with you after the event, you can let them know for sure, any follow-up questions, or if you want to get that custom demo going. So this is my login. You can see I'm using the Chrome browser, pretty neutral on the browser. I typically use Chrome, Firefox, and Explorer, and logging in this application using whichever browser I have up. Again, I am going back into the server room and hitting an arcserve appliance, but if I was hitting our own gear, our own homemade box, this would all look exactly the same. If we have anybody on the call who is already an arcserve UDP user, and this doesn't look familiar, this is 6.5, which is the latest release, which has added in the assured recovery, as you saw on the email invitation. And I'll tell you a little bit about that as we get to this panel. But up here, I'm really just kind of looking at some high-level information. You can see I've got 9 successful backups. I've got 1 machine that I don't have in a plan. If I didn't know what was going on there, I'd want to go and investigate that and start seeing what's going on. I can kind of filter this a little bit. I don't spend a ton of time fooling around with the dashboard, to be honest with you. I really just want to get a quick view, and if it looks good, I'm moving on. This is my actual storage information, and kind of the fun thing here is you can't even hardly tell the disk space that I'm using without getting your mouse on here. So because of the strong dedupe algorithm that arcserve utilizes, I'm really putting a ton of data, and I mean a metric ton, like 2,000 pounds of data, right, on about 1.5 terabytes of disk space. If you look at this thing, Todd, if we were to actually take every recovery point that we had and do a bare metal restore, we'd actually have about almost 140 terabytes of data, and we're backing up some machines that are of raw data. That would be full restores for all the recovery points. Now, the reality is you would never do that. I guess maybe if you're doing some forensic thing, you could get close to doing something weird like that. But I'm storing a lot of data in a very tiny amount of disk space. I have a 6 terabyte appliance, and so I can actually do a couple of things. I don't have any more servers that I really need to back up, but I could increase my capacity that way. The other thing that I could come back and do, though, is I could really increase my recovery points. So instead of being able to go back 30 or 40 or 50 points in time on some of my critical servers, I could go back 100 points in time, right? And depending on how I've set my backup job, that could be going back 3 months, or it could be going back to early last week. If I was backing up every 15 minutes around the clock, that's going to be a shorter time on the calendar. If I'm backing up, every 3 hours, 5 days a week, just during business hours, I'm going to be able to go back a lot farther in time, months and months potentially, right? And you'll kind of see that as we get into the policies. Got some recovery point information, age of my newest recovery point, all kinds of good stuff here, right? The most interesting part of this, and I'm going to show you how we set this up, and this is a feature that has been around forever in arcserve's high availability product, but it's relatively new to the backup product, and it's called assured recovery. And what the assured recovery does is it basically runs a self-test on schedule, so you can program this to run every time a backup job runs, or just overnight, or a lot of different ways you can set this up. And what this is going to do is basically run through and do a restore and then blow all that stuff away so you get your disk space back, but it's effectively doing a restore test for you. And you can do a whole bunch of different things, from full machine build to just file and folder restores, bare metal recovery testing, all kinds of good stuff to make sure that you're really meeting your needs, and that when you go to do your first recovery or the next recovery, that it's going to work if this is all looking good. And so I'll show you how we get that set up here. You can see I've got a new update available here, so I can do my updates from right inside the console. Because I'm running the appliance, I would actually want to go ahead and launch this right off the appliance, which is a Server 2012 based server, basically, where I can also run Hyper-V and do my virtual standby. So I don't, again, spend a ton of time on the dashboard. I spend a lot of my time here in this resources section. As I come into here, you can see all of the machines that I have in here. This is my actual arcserve appliance here. So I have an agent deployed to it because I'm using it as a proxy, but I'm not actually backing it up because it would be backing up to itself. And then I have another machine here that I've been backing up as a part of one of my virtual machines, but I kind of realized really no need to back up this Windows 7 guest, right? So I can delete this out of here if I don't care about it. When I do that, it's going to clear out the previous backup job. So I don't have it as a part of a plan. If I want to be able to go back and look at these previous recovery points that I have here, I can keep this around. And if I want to get rid of those and free up disk space, I can just hop in here and blow that thing right away. This might take a little longer than I thought. There we go. Right, and so now I've just got my environment cleaned up. Pretty easy to do. The other thing that I can do from here is maybe I want to back up all my machines right before I'm getting ready to do some patching, or I just want to back up some of my key machines. The other thing that I have done to make things a little bit easier in myself is I've created some custom groups. So I've got my DCs together in one group. These things can be in two different plans, but now I can see them together. So if I want to make sure that all my DCs are getting backed up, even though I have them on different jobs or different plans and running on different schedules, I can see them in a group, or all my SQL servers or all of location A, and I can see them together even though I'm backing them up in different ways. And from here, I can go ahead and click on that and launch a backup job. And so even though these are in two different plans, I'm basically getting both of these machines running an on-demand incremental backup. And so that job just got kicked off. And if I highlight any one of these, I'll be able to see some results here from starting to happen. The little circle denotes the backup is starting. So now I'll be able to see that here. We'll see this one fire up in a second. Now, excuse me. If I need to recover, and I'll show you how we set up these backup plans in a sec. If I need to recover, I can do that a couple of different ways. And one of the easiest ways is to just simply click on that machine. And this is loading. Now look up here. This says this is loading the UDP agent, but this is an agentless. This machine is a virtual guest that's getting backed up agentlessly. So I'm not actually referencing a real agent. I'm referencing the virtual agent where I can actually start doing some neat things here. So let me just pop that open a little bit. So because the backup job is running, I've got a little status bar up here. Usually this is at the top if you're just coming in to do a restore, and I can click on this details button and get a little more detailed information about what's going on with this backup job. It's going to do an incremental backup. Once that's done, it's going to take that incremental backup and it's going to convert it into an offline virtual machine, which is a setting that I've set up. Right, and then it's going to do some merging and some cataloging so that I can do fast file finds. And all this stuff is configurable by me in my plan. So let's get back to the recovery. You can see I've got a bunch of different recovery points here. Green means that everything worked for the whole day. Yellow means that I probably missed a job or maybe more than one job on that day. So here you can see I had a job that failed at 7:01. I could go back into the logs and figure out why, or it looks like maybe I had a whole bunch of jobs here that because we had a network issue. That's right. So I was kind of a little surprised of what I was seeing, but now I could go back into the jobs and start figuring out, well, why did this fail? What was going on? Right, and start doing fixes if I needed to. I'm back on the recovery path, so I can see though that I might be a few recovery points short. So each of these days that I click on, I'm going to be able to see the recovery points for that day. Then I can click on the recovery point that I'm looking for. So if somebody comes back and says I accidentally overwrote this file, last week, I think it was maybe on Wednesday in the afternoon, then I can go to Wednesday and I can look for something as close to noon or as close to 1 or whatever time I want. And then I can do a couple of different things. I can mount the recovery point, so it's going to mount as a drive, and I can start browsing through the folder structure. And that's my favorite thing to do if I'm just looking for for a file, because then I'm not as dependent on the file name that was given to me, which I find a lot of times is not what they remembered, right? So it can make it easy to figure some stuff out that way. The other way you can do it is click on this restore button, and this is going to take you into a wizard where you can do a couple of different kinds of things. Now, we're an O365 shop here, so I'm not going to be able to take advantage of the restore the Microsoft Exchange data, but there is a plugin now where you can back up your O365 mailboxes using the arcserve. And so if that's something you're doing, let us know. We can definitely give you a look at how that works. So I can start looking through my recovery points. I can start searching all of my recovery points. So if I'm looking for something and I really just have zero idea of where it was or when it was or whatever, I can look through all the recovery points. But if I know exactly what I'm looking for, I can speed up my recovery by going right into the right source to look for that. And then I'm just going to go through my wizard here and start looking for more filtered data to find the exact file or folder that I'm looking for.
That's cool.
Okay, yeah. So let's hop out of here. Let's hop into our plans real quick, and we'll take a look at the primary plan that we're doing. So the first thing that I've done is set up a host-based agentless task. I've chosen my machines. I can come back in there and add more machines. I can delete machines out of here. Machines can only be in one plan, though. So if I move a machine into another plan that's here, it's going to disappear from here as it gets added in. I will get a warning, so it's not going to be a surprise to me, but I can't have them in more than one plan. I can choose where I'm going to back them up to. We're using the appliance, so we're backing up everything to the appliance, but we might not want to have everything on here. So I can choose a little bit, and I can choose some other destinations to store to, even if I am using the appliance. Though if that's what you're doing, that's probably where you're going to store most of your data. Set up my schedule, and you can see here, we're doing a 7 to 6 a.m. Deal. I actually created this yesterday as part of a demo to show how you could do it. And then I've got one final backup that happens overnight, right? So I can easily delete this out of here. I can add in a new backup job or merge job, or throttle the bandwidth that it's consuming through different times of the day. So a lot of capabilities there. Pretty easy to set this up. So maybe I want to do a monthly full. 10 p.m. is good on the first Sunday, whatever I want to do. And how many of those do I want to keep? So it's going to drop off the 13th one when the next one gets rolling, right? Or I guess maybe it's dropping off number 1 when the 13th one gets going. So a lot of capabilities there. I can run my backups down to every 15 minutes. And if I really need to do some larger servers, right, where I'm having a hard time meeting that 15 or 20-minute SLA, then I can do some things like do my data merging and cataloging later so that the backup can get done quicker. That's going to make the backup faster, but when I go to restore, my catalog will have to be generated before I can find anything, so I'll have a little bit of a slower restore. In my environment, we're backing up every hour, and my servers are relatively manageable with not a ton of changes, so I could easily get this down to 15 minutes if I wanted to, but within that hour, I can complete the backup, do the cataloging, so that my backups are as fast as I need them to be, but also my recoveries are as fast as they can be. So pretty handy there. Set up some email alerts. Down here, we got this plugged in with our Office 365. That's the setting if you're an O365 user. That's all documented now, but we were a pioneer here, so we had to figure all that stuff out on our own. Right, and then the next step, took me quite a few, what if I do this, and check this on, and check that on, now try it. Right, all this good stuff. Once arcserve switched over to O365, they got all that stuff documented. But again, we were the pioneer. So the next step, right, I'm doing this full backup or incremental backup. I can take that backup file and do a bare metal recovery. So I can take a virtual guest and rebuild a physical machine. I can take a physical machine and build a virtual guest or build another physical machine with that, right? And there, my recovery time is kind of a little bit dependent on how much data do I have. Do I need to move 1 terabyte of data from my appliance or my NAS onto this new machine to start the rebuild? Well, just moving 1 terabyte across a 100 meg line or a gig line is going to take a certain amount of time just based on physics, right? And so what if I don't have that kind of time? Well, the next thing that I'm doing then is creating an offline virtual machine. So it's taking that bare metal recoverable file and it's creating a guest for me. And so now if I have an outage, rather than doing any kind of data copy or rebuilding, and ultimately maybe I have to do that if I want to rebuild a new physical machine, I can come into my Hyper-V manager, click on my appliance here, and I can fire up one of the machines that we were looking at was BB King, one of our domains. So now my recovery can go like this, right click, start. And that's going to fire up this offline virtual machine. It's going to have the exact same machine name. It's going to have the exact same static IP address. So what I for sure don't want is for this to be running while my production machine is running. But if that goes down, I can recover this way. Once I fire this up, if I'm running it off my arcserve appliance like I am, this is an arcserve or a Microsoft Hyper-V VHD file. I can import or export that over to one of my production Hyper-V servers. I can convert that into a VMDK for VMware if I'm a VMware shop. If I am a VMware shop, rather than storing this on my arcserve appliance here, I might actually want to put it right on one of my production VMware boxes or straight up into Amazon EC2, right? And now I've got this already on a production box, and if I have an outage, I can go to that machine, fire that up. If I want to change some of the settings that I've pre-built for RAM and processor, I'll be able to do that using my standard VMware tools or my standard Hyper-V tools, right? So this is the settings that I've set. I'm keeping 3 of these snaps here. I'm using 1 CPU, and it's using about 3.5 gigs of RAM. In my Hyper-V manager, if I had to fire that up, I would just come into my settings and change all that stuff to whatever I want it to be, right? So gives me a lot of capabilities. I don't have to use a lot of brain power other than making sure that I've allocated enough RAM for it to start. You know, if I set that thing down to 256 meg, the server 2012 session might have a hard time getting going. So I need to think about that, but I don't necessarily need to worry about, well, what if I'm running these 3 guests at the same time or these 2 guests at the same time or whatever? If I have to recover, I can modify these settings to make sure that whichever machines I had to fire up here can play well as far as resource utilization. So one of my favorite features, and we've had to use this, I don't want to say a bunch of times, but a couple of times, and it's really been handy where once we've identified, hey, that machine is hosed, and we could basically be fired up, and these DCs get rolling in under 5 minutes. Some of those other machines are kind of a 4 to 6 minute fire up. Depends a little bit on the resources and the amount of data, but super quick to do. The advanced section here, setting up those email notes. Now, the next cool thing that I can do, we talked a little bit about the assured recovery, is create a new task, and I can move stuff to tape, set up a replication job, do my virtual standby, move recovery points around. We're going to do the assured recovery test. It's going to run daily. Need to choose one of those. There we go. Right, and now I can start configuring how do I want to do this test. So I've got it here set up for VMware vSphere. If I want to do this on my appliance, I choose Hyper-V, choose my arcserve appliance. Need to fix those user credentials, obviously. Right, choose my Windows proxy server, which I would use the arcserve appliance. Take advantage of DHCP, or I could plug in static IPs, and this is basically going to be the methodology for my test. So do I want to do full machine recovery, file and folder, all that stuff I'm going to set up here, and then I'm going to be able to populate my dashboard after I create my SLAs. And so I'm turning it on here Then I'm going to go down to my SLA profiles here. You can see I've already created one for us. And now I can come in here and say, what is my SLA? And what machines do I want to benchmark against? So I've chosen my 2 DCs, and I can change these defaults to whatever I want them to be.
Cool. This is good, Pete. We probably got a couple more minutes, and then
yeah, we can be done here. Lots of reports. You know, definitely detailed on the logs. Once you have this set up, you're going to start populating your dashboard. Right, the assured recovery is built into the premium edition, and the top version is Premium Plus, which includes the replication and high availability. Then Premium, where this is located, and then the arcserve Advanced, which will help you drive some basic data to tape, but do all of the quick start, fast backup stuff that we've showed already. And definitely your productive rep can help you figure out which version makes the most sense for you.
Yeah, totally. Well, hey, Pete, thank you so much for a fantastic presentation. I feel even more assured that you've assured me and the others about assured recovery.
Right.
Yeah, great stuff. Thank you, everybody who attended today. I know you have a lot of things on your plate, so the fact that you chose to spend 30 minutes with us is very much appreciated. I'm Todd Obert from Productive, along with Pete Greco, wishing you a fantastic balance of your day and week, and hopefully we'll talk soon. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.